Julia Roberts didn't grow up dreaming of becoming America's sweetheart. She grew up learning how fragile dreams could be. She was born on October 28, 1967, in Smyrna, Georgia, far from red carpets and flashing cameras. Her parents, Walter and Betty Lou Roberts, were actors and playwrights who ran a small children's acting workshop. Creativity lived in the house, but stability did not. When Julia was just 4 years old, her parents divorced, and the family fractured in ways that would leave permanent emotional marks. Money was tight. Life was uncertain. Julia learned early that laughter could disappear overnight. Her mother remarried a man who would later be described as abusive. Julia has spoken openly about how painful and confusing those years were. The house that was supposed to be safe didn't always feel that way. What saved her, she would later say, was imagination, stories, escaping into characters who felt braver, freer, and stronger than she did. She didn't see herself as beautiful growing up. She thought her mouth was too big, her laugh too loud, her presence too much. Teachers, student, TCA, future movie star. Casting directors didn't, either at least not at first, but Julia had something that couldn't be taught, presence, after graduating high school. She moved to New York City with $200 in her pocket and a hope she didn't know how to name it. She studied acting. She waited tables. She auditioned constantly and heard no more times than she could count. Hollywood didn't open its doors politely. It barely cracked them. Her first film roles were small and unremarkable. Movies like Mystic Pizza didn't make her famous, but they made people pause. There was something about her on screen, natural warmth, a sincerity that couldn't be faked. Audiences leaned in without realizing why. Then came 1990, Pretty Woman. No one expected that movie to become what it did. Not the studio, not the critics, and certainly not Julia Roberts herself. She was only 22 years old when she played Vivian Ward, a woman who was written on paper as a stereotype, but transformed by Julia into someone human, funny, vulnerable, and unforgettable. Her smile didn't feel rehearsed. Her laugh didn't feel scripted. Se felt real. The movie became a cultural explosion. Overnight, Julia Roberts was everywhere. Magazine covers, talk shows, billboards, movie posters in every city on earth. Hollywood crowned her America's sweetheart almost instantly, a title that felt more like a cage than a compliment. Because while the world saw a fairy tale, Julia felt the pressure. Building that fame didn't arrive gently. It arrived loudly and without instructions. Suddenly, every move she made was watched, judged, and rewritten by strangers. Her personal life became public property. Her relationships were dissected. Her appearance was analyzed. Her smile was expected always. And Julia struggled. She walked away from projects. She was labeled difficult. Studios whispered that she was unreliable. The same industry that had lifted her up began quietly questioning her worth. She didn't fit neatly into Hollywood's expectations. She refused to shrink herself. She didn't play the game the way others did. Instead, she disappeared when she needed to. In the midnight, while her peers chased fame harder, Julia stepped back. She moved to New Mexico. She rode horses. She lived away from cameras. People called it career suicide, but Julia called it survival. She returned stronger. Films like My Best Friend's Wedding, Notting Hill, and Runaway Bride reminded the world why they fell in love with her in the first place. But it was Erin Brockovich in 2000 that changed everything. The role was risky. Erin wasn't polished. She wasn't sweet. She wasn't quiet. She was loud, angry, relentless. And Real. Studios doubted audiences would accept Julia Roberts, playing a woman who didn't smile to be liked. Julia didn't care. She poured herself into the role, channeling years of being underestimated, dismissed, and misunderstood. When Erin Brockovich was released, critics were stunned. Audiences were electrified. Julia Roberts won the Academy Award for Best Actress. Standing on that stage, holding the Oscar, she didn't look triumphant. She looked grounded, like someone who had finally proven something to herself, more than anyone else. But even success couldn't protect her from pain. Her love life was relentlessly scrutinized. Breakups became headlines. Mistakes became morality tales. She was criticized for being too independent, too emotional, too private, too public sometimes, all at once. Hollywood loves women until they stop being convenient. Julia refused to disappear quietly. Instead, she evolved. She chose roles that challenged her, not roles that guaranteed applause. At a time when Hollywood rewarded predictability, Julia Roberts leaned into uncertainty. She didn't want to repeat herself. She didn't want to become a polished version of yesterday's success. She wanted to feel something when she stepped onto a set. If the script didn't scare her a little, if it didn't demand something uncomfortable or unfamiliar, she wasn't interested. That decision alone set her apart. While other stars chased momentum, Julia slowed hers down. She worked less and lived more. An idea Hollywood rarely respects but secretly envies. She stepped away when she felt overwhelmed. She turned down roles that didn't align with who she was becoming. She trusted her instincts, even when they cost her visibility. In an industry obsessed with constant exposure, she learned the power of absence. Then she fell in love with someone who wasn't interested in the spotlight at all. Denny Modar was a cameraman, someone who stood behind the lens, not in front of it. Their relationship didn't fit Hollywood's fairy tale narrative. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't performative. It was quiet, grounded, and intentionally private. When she married him, she made a statement without saying a word. Her life didn't belong to the public. She chose a home away from red carpets, away from the relentless noise of fame. She chose mornings without cameras, dinners without interviews, and moments that existed only because no one was watching. That choice confused people. Some called it retreat. Others called it irrelevance. Julia called it peace. Motherhood changed her in ways no award ever could. It grounded her. It redefined success. Suddenly, time became more valuable than attention. Presence mattered more than praise. She softened, but she did not weaken. If anything, she grew more certain of who she was and what she would no longer tolerate. She didn't chase relevance. Relevance followed her as Hollywood shifted, becoming louder, faster, more disposable. Julia Roberts remained something rare. She didn't reinvent herself for attention. She didn't manufacture controversy. She didn't beg to be seen. She stayed authentic long enough for time itself to do the work. And time was kind to her. Her career became a blueprint. Younger actresses didn't just study her performances. They studied her pauses, her exits, her refusals. They noticed how she walked away without burning bridges, how she returned without apology, how she never allowed the industry to convince her that her worth depended on constant productivity. She showed that stepping away could be an act of power, that saying no could protect your soul. That success didn't require self-destruction. 4 years. Hollywood had trained women to believe that visibility was survival, that silence meant disappearance, that aging was something to outrun. Julia rejected that narrative without announcing it. She simply lived differently. She trusted that her work would speak when she chose to speak again. And when she did, people listened. In interviews now, Julia speaks with a calm honesty that only comes from having nothing left to prove. She talks openly about fear, how it never truly leaves, how it just changes shape. She talks about aging, not as an enemy but as a reality she's learning to respect. She admits insecurity without dramatizing it. She expresses gratitude without sounding rehearsed. She laughs easily, not the nervous laughter of someone trying to be liked, but the relaxed laughter of someone comfortable in her own skin. She doesn't apologize for taking up space anymore. That might be her quietest revolution. Because for years, she did apologize implicitly, subtly, constantly, for her success, for her independence, for her choices, for being both deeply feminine and unapologetically strong in an industry that preferred women to be one or the other. Never both. She learned, slowly, that she didn't owe the world an explanation. And perhaps that is her greatest legacy. Not the box office numbers that once shattered records. Not the awards that validated her talent. Not even the iconic smile that became a cultural symbol, but the reminder that a woman doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Julia Roberts survived Hollywood without letting it erase her. She didn't allow fame to flatten her into a brand. She didn't allow criticism to shrink her into silence. She didn't allow expectations to dictate her evolution. She changed on her own terms. She didn't become America's sweetheart by trying to be loved. She became unforgettable, being real, and in an industry built on illusion, that authenticity became her most enduring role.